Hey, hi, welcome. You know, there are a lot of ways to fail during an incident investigation. To be brutally honest, you're responsible for all of them. Well, most of them for sure. Me? Really? Me? Yes, you. Me. Seriously. Yeah, seriously. Did I mumble? Anyway, let's look at the top 5 and some solutions that you might take or implement so that you can avoid tanking an incident investigation or at minimum hindering one. I also want to encourage you to stick around to the end of the video because I've got an added pitfall that you might want to be aware of. So stick around towards the end and we can talk about that as well. Reason number 1 that you can fail is your initial response. When you get that phone call that there's been an incident, you know what you do in that phone call, what you do in those first 2 minutes of a phone call could influence positively or negatively the rest of your investigation. So you want to make sure that that 2 minutes counts. Let's look at what you can do to make those 2 minutes count. You want to ask some questions when you get called. You want to ask what happened. Get a quick idea. If you have to, ask a few more qualifying questions. The next question you want to ask is there any more danger? Or make sure that the scene is safe and nothing else is going to happen. You might have to qualify it by asking, is the machinery locked out? Is everything shut down? Is the power off? Is everything secure? The next thing you want to ask is, was anyone hurt? Realistically, if people have been hurt, a lot of times there's going to be some inherent panic, so you may need to qualify if and confirm if the ambulance has been called or if the injured are being attended to. And note if any other first responders have been called, such as the fire department or the police. Finally, you want to make sure that the scene is cordoned off and preserved so that you can start collecting reliable data once you get there. Reason number 2 is your preparedness. Now, I talked about it in a previous video about having all of your incident investigation gear, or a majority of it, in a backpack that you can take to the scene. That's great. What if the backpack isn't with you? If you're packing your backpack around work all the time, we should talk. That's a little bit too much paranoia.
Seems a little paranoid.
But 2 things that I pack with me all the time when I'm on the job are, 1, a notebook with a pen. I prefer a moleskin, fits in my back pocket, and my smartphone. Just to have a quick look on my smartphone, if you can focus on, there you go, look at that. I have some apps that are really helpful during an incident investigation when I get there and I don't have that other equipment. If you want to know about these apps or you want me to do a short video on that, just let me know in the comments. I appreciate it. But having these allows you to start initially recording things at the scene, such as worker statements, taking pictures, or noting a few other things at the scene and collecting data while you're waiting for your incident investigation gear to get there. Once again, make sure that you use your time well and be prepared. And this takes us to reason number 3, but wait, before we get to reason number 3, I want to thank each and every one of you that's taken the time to click that subscribe button and to ding that bell so that you get notified of new content when it goes up in the channel. I also want to thank you for the interaction that you give me through the comments, the likes, and the dislikes, because that's what helps me to improve. So thank you. Reason number 3, and that's your conduct at the scene. Honestly, when you get there, I know you're going to want to dive into the scene and start collecting data. And absolutely, it has to be preserved and recorded. But there's some considerations to think of when you first get there. And that is taking charge, but do it without being a dictator.
I saw what you did there.
Yes, emphasis on the syllable for a reason. Please and thank you are good things. They are. Being courteous and calm is essential. You want to check and make sure that your instructions are done, and that you, if you have to, and give other instructions, make sure that they're good, clear instructions, once again, without yelling and shouting, because your emotions can be contagious. If you're calm, collected, and professional, everybody else there will be so as well, will do the same thing. Now, you want to get to the data and you want to start making observations, collecting data, making sketches, taking photographs, etc. I understand that. But the scene is going to be there for a while. The most important thing before you do that is the people. So this brings me to point 4, your interaction with the people involved in the scene. Now, honestly, you're going to need to ask some questions. You're going to need to interview. You're going to need to take witness statements and worker statements. But it's the important process and how. If you're not getting good answers, are you asking good questions? If you're not getting the right answers, are you asking the right questions? You want to avoid leading questions. You want to make sure that you're asking open-ended questions, in other words, ones that don't require a yes or a no. You want to avoid asking things like, you shut off the machine, right? Instead, you might want to ask them to give you a timeline. Tell me what happened immediately after the incident. You might have to ask a qualifying question such as, when during all of this did you shut off the machine? You might want to ask them to give you approximations in time, but you want to avoid leading them to the answer because you want a genuine answer. The other thing is you don't want to ignore people. Everybody at that scene has value, whether they be the witness, the workers involved, or some casual bystanders that wandered onto the scene. Make sure that you separate everyone. Witnesses in one group, workers that are involved in another group, bystanders in another group. If you have to, give the bystanders a job. Tell them to start taking photographs if you have. You might not value any, but at least they're doing something. Be patient. Tell everybody what's going on, what the progress is going to look like, and if you have to, pass out pieces of paper and pens and get witnesses to start writing out their statements. You'll collect them and get to them after for clarification. Now, the next group of people that you have to deal with are executive and management. Now, a lot of times they're going to want to know what's going on. What I found the best answer to give them is a summary of the event. This is what's occurred. I'm busy collecting data. It's too early to draw conclusions. I will get back to you as soon as I can when I have something more definitive to tell you and some of my preliminary findings. Give them a reasonable time, the end of the day or the next day, whatever. It's going to depend on the magnitude of the incident that you're dealing with. I found that tends to placate them. Once again, it's going to be dependent on your organization. Number 5. But before we get to that, I just want to give you a quick reminder that I'm going to talk about another pitfall towards the end. So just a couple more minutes and we'll get to that. The number 5 is presenting your findings and your conclusions and how you deal with it. I want you to remember, you need to avoid premature factualization.
I don't get it.
Yes, I know, that sounds a bit funny. But anyway, you want to avoid premature factualization. In other words, the executive is going to want to know stuff right away. You want to avoid telling things that you may have to take back or walk back at a later time. It's going to affect your credibility going forward, and it may affect the preventive measures that you're going to outline through the investigation. So make sure that once your data has been collected, you've made the observations, you've drawn the conclusions, make your recommendation from those conclusions, and then include them in your report. Hold off anybody until your report's done. Learn the value of an executive summary. It's absolutely necessary because a lot of times people don't have, the executive especially, don't have the time to read a detailed report. Your executive summary should consist of 4 points. You should have a background to the event. In other words, a quick description of the event that occurred. You need to include the main observations that you've done, the conclusions that you've drawn through those observations, and of course, your recommendations. Now, your executive summary should entice the reader to read the rest of the report. So you're going to have to take some creative measures. Now, the next thing is you may have to give presentations, so you want to avoid death by PowerPoint. There is no value in committing people to a slow, agonizing death of verbatim reading of your report. Focus on brevity. Summarize the event, main observations, your conclusions, your recommendations, and reference your report through it and entice the people that are present to read your report. So once again, don't go off half-cocked. Half-cocked is dangerous. You want to make sure that you take the time during your initial call to ask the questions and clarify things and give instructions so your scene is preserved and the accident scene is safer when you get there. You want to make sure that you have the necessary gear at your disposal, and if not, once again, the value of a notebook and phone. They can help you to collect data once you're there while you're waiting your equipment. When you're at the scene, be courteous, behave in a professional manner, and preserve that scene so that you could be able to make good observations and collect data. You want to treat the people in a professional manner. You want to ask the right questions. You want to make sure that the people that were involved with the incident are separated from those that witnessed it. And finally, when you present your findings, you want to do it in a good manner with clarification, noting what occurred, what you observed, what your conclusions are, your recommendations with brevity, but referencing your report. Now, that other big trap I talked about is bias. It can affect your investigation at the scene, your interpretation of the data that you've collected and the observations you've made, and negatively affect your conclusions if you're not aware of it. I've made some short videos regarding biases, and I'll leave them up here. I also did an earlier live stream about it, and I'll leave a link in the description. But be aware of bias and how it can affect what you're doing. Now, until we see each other again, and I really hope we do, be a leader, be a safety influencer, provoke safety wherever you are. Take care. Bye for now.